Hi all, welcome to the Test Automation Arena by Afza. I am Afza Aziz, working as a Senior Quality Engineer. Today I will be covering how to kick off API automation with a basic POST request. Also, secondly, I will be covering on how to include an array within our POST request. And also thirdly, on how to send a number of objects within an array of our POST request. Okay, let us move to the code. Here we should have a layer as a testing layer, request util layer, and the request object class layer. So this is the testing layer. So we have all the test cases here: sample test 2. We have the request util layer. Here only we have all the methods we are going to call from the testing layer, and we have the request layer. So in the request layer we have the request object mapping with getters and setters being set to create the POST request. Okay, now we will be calling the request util from our test layer. So we can see we have the test layer here, and so we are going to create a basic request. So this is calling our request util layer from the test layer, and this request util have the header details. So you can see we are sending the headers to the request. Here we are sending the request body, and also we have the URL path which we are hitting the POST request in our testing layer. Hope you got a basic understanding of the 3-layer architecture here. Now I will move deeply into the POST request. So we are going to create a POST request basically for this basic scenario. We have to create a field called the basic name and send a random value. We have to create a field called the created by and send a value, created date and send a value, and its default boolean value and send whether it is true or false. So this is a very basic request where we are going to start our API automation. Here we have two methods to create the request class with getters and setters. Basically we have to create the request class with getters and setters before moving into the test case automation. So we have two methods here. We could code these getters and setters by hand, or we could use JSON schema to convert this body into the request object. Here I will use the JSON schema method like this. We have to just paste the request body. We need to make the object here. Select source type as YAML and preview. Here we are getting the request class object, the blueprint which we need to create the object. So we can copy this and paste it in a create basic request Java class. So this is the blueprint where we are going to create the request object. Okay, here after declaring the getters and setters, we have to call them via a method. This method will define the keys and the values and set them as one object. So here we have the JSON property order, which order we need to set the fields into the object. So here are the getters and the setters, and finally here is that method we are passing the getters, passing the setters to create the object. So this passes all our fields here: basic name, created by, created date is default, and I am taking the variables from the test layer, passing through the test layer. So this method will be called from the request util layer. When I move into the request util layer, we have the method called here create basic request dot set values create basic request. This is passing the variables which we get from the testing layer. So here we are passing the test data here. Okay, hope you got simple understanding about how to work on this layer architecture. So I will now go to the code and create this request. I will remove the code and explain one by one, creating the post request we just discussed about. Here I'll declare the soft asset first. Then I will just create a data object for my data layer. So this is nothing else but just creating an object of my data to retrieve the data and send it to the post request. So I will override my basic request name with the basic request name I created. Basic. So I will create my other variables here which I need to send into the post request. Okay, now I have declared my methods and also the variables. Now I have to send these variables into the request as below. So we are using REST assured and Java here, so we will use response is equal our request util dot create so our request util create basic request, and I have to pass the variables I declared above. First I have to pass a token, and for testing purpose I will be passing random token. Then I have to send the basic request name. Then I have to send the created by. Then I have to send the created date. And finally is default boolean value. Complete the request, and finally going to set my answer. So this will create our basic object and assert to the response. So here I have called the response util as well to get the response code from my response. So I have passed the response here, and I am passing the same response object here and getting the response code from the response object, and I'm going to assert it into 404 here because this is just a testing endpoint and not a real-time endpoint, and that will throw a 404 via my request. So this is completed. Now I'm going to run the test case and see my result. Okay, so here you can see we have got the request body correctly as we needed. So I will put it into the JSON formatter and show you. So there it is. We have a basic API request with a basic name, created by, created date, and is default is entered in the request body. Hope you got an understanding about how to convert this into a basic API request automation test case. And now I will be moving into my second part, how to include a data array in our post request with the same key repeating. So let us assume we need to create a post request somewhat complex than the before one, with this kind of an array needed to be sent in the body for the value of users. So we have to do it in a different way, not as the previous one. So here what we have to do is this is also something like this. We have the test case number 2. So we have to send user ID thrice, user ID 1, user ID 2, user ID 3, but the field name is same. So we have to use the hash mapping to create a number of objects with the same field name but different variable values. So here I have created a map, so we can use the map in this scenario. So map string map, this will create new hash map, and we can put the user ID, the field name, and the value we need. Then we can create another map object and put the user ID, field name, and the value, and likewise we can add the number of items we need with the same key name, user ID. So after that we have to create an array list. So I am creating an array list and adding those above maps into the array list. So let's assume we have a list called list, and I'm going to add the above map into the list dot add map, list dot add map 1, list dot add map2. So this will create this one. So list dot add map1 will add this one into the list. List dot add map2 will add this one into the list. List dot add map3 will add this one into the list. And finally we have to create this one. So we have a users key outside the array, and this is how to create that one. So I'm going to create another map array list, so map3, and I'm going to put map3 dot put. This is the name we just want here, users, and I want to add this whole bunch of things inside the users. So users key name is users, then I have to add the whole bunch of things, that is the list where we declared above. This list. So this is my new mapping, which the above list is added into the map with the new keyword users, which is declared outside the array object. So here after that I have to just pass this list into my request as we did previously, and this will create the request body like this, different fields and a field, a key with the users, and that is an array. Inside that array we have 3 different values for user IDs repeatingly. Let us run this and see. Here we can see that is prepared correctly through our post request. These all the fields are correctly there. Okay, now I will move into my final part of today's tutorial. So it is how to send a number of objects within an array of our post request. So let us assume we need to create an object something like this. So we have a basic kind of fields, then we have a field like this. It is an array field. It has different objects sent inside repeatingly. So let's assume we need to send 2 objects of this address once, and in another scenario we need to send 4 or 5. So in that case what we are going to do, so here I'm going to explain my test case 3, how we could create that kind of a request. So that is simple as well. So I'm going to create new array list, and I have new address object. That address object is this object, this one, created with the getters and setters. So after that I am going to set the street name, province name and country name of for that address object, address 01. Then I am going to add this address object into my array list. So address list dot add address 01, that will create this one. So address 01 object. Again I'm going to make my address 02 object here, and adding the set street, set province and set country again. And for the same array list I have to add the address 02 object as well. So that will create this here inside the address object array. So that is how we insert two addresses for the same user. Let's assume you need another one. You can use this one and prepare address 03 and send it into the same array list. And finally what you have to do is you have to just send this array list into your request like this. So array list I have sent into the basic request, and that will create the required scenario we needed. When we see the request, so this is prepared something like this. So same as what we needed. So we have the address field, we have an array for the address field, and we need to send several addresses as comma separated in the addresses field. So this is how you could do this with REST Assured and Java. So hope you got an understanding on how to kick off API automation and how to work on the post request, the basic request, and working with arrays. So yes, that's it from here. We'll see you soon in the next video. Thanks.